Bum 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 ba da da.
If we look at our society, we are a collective team. Everyone wants to feel accepted for who they are. It's human nature to want to feel a sense of belonging. An inclusive society creates that sense of belonging for everyone. And if we want an inclusive society, then we have to become a team. Imagine you're in a sports team. If one person took all the goals or never passed the ball around, would that person be considered a good team player? I think not. To have a functioning team where everyone contributes, you have to pass the ball around. Even if that means you don't always get the glory, but by doing so, you are ensuring that everyone gets a chance to succeed. To create an inclusive society, we have to pass the ball around. Passing the ball ensures that everyone gets a chance to be seen and provides platforms for those whose voices are not being heard. Helen Keller once said, "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." Now, creating an inclusive society is quite a broad subject. Therefore, I'm going to narrow it down for raising awareness for people with disabilities and how we can be better allies, creating a community where everyone thrives. Disabilities is a huge spectrum. You have both physical and intellectual, and most of my knowledge is around intellectual disabilities because I am blessed enough to have an amazing younger sister who has autism and ADHD. I see the potential in my sister and how much she has to offer to society, her many talents and capabilities, and I want to live in a world where all our differences show our strengths. I'm trying my very best to be a good ally. And through my experience, I've realized that there is a lot that people don't know regarding disability awareness. And if we want to be good allies, we must actively promote inclusivity. So, what do we want? Everyone here, I assume, wants to feel like a valued member of society. You want to feel accepted and included, because no one likes to feel left out. If that's what we all want, why are we still making inclusivity optional? Since when did we get given the right to pick and choose between who we want to include in our society? If you want to feel accepted for who you are, then you need to accept others. I think it's time that we step it up. So, how can we actually achieve this? We can do this through acceptance, understanding our privilege, question systems, breaking stereotypes, using correct language, and standing up against discrimination. The first step is acceptance. And as simple as this sounds, this one is extremely important. If you can't accept people have differences, then you might as well stop listening now. We all learn and think differently, but our society has been built to fit the majority. Therefore, anyone that doesn't fit societal norms tends to get pushed aside. How would you like the feeling of being denied the opportunity to go to school because you learn differently than the majority? This is the sad reality that people with disabilities have to face. To put this into perspective, roughly 90% of girls with disabilities do not go to school in the world. How can we expect anyone to thrive when the systems set in place are ones that hold you back? Acceptance is key to changing that. After acceptance, next is understanding your privileges. I'm going to cover a few basic privileges like education. For the majority of us, finding a school is not a huge issue, even if you lived in rural New Zealand. I've witnessed firsthand how hard it is to find education options for students with disabilities. I've watched my parents cry because of the lack of options available. My sister has been to 2 primary schools, which is good compared to other students, as school jumping is common. And then there is the last resort of homeschooling. Another privilege that goes hand in hand with education is accessibility. Not all schools have wheelchair access, which is discriminatory and ignorant. Then there is public transport and large crowds, which can be quite an anxious setting for people that might have autism or ADHD. These are just a few examples, but it means that people with disabilities have additional barriers to live a fulfilling life. Understanding our privileges doesn't mean feeling super guilty. It's basically just realizing that there are some things people have to go through that you might not to the same degree. How can we use our privilege to improve things? Well, we can start to question why environments and systems are the way they are. Start questioning why your school doesn't have wheelchair accessibility. Encourage inclusivity within schools, whether that's through having awareness days or just having conversations with people. We can't really make change unless we question why these discriminatory structures exist. Because these systems and structures have always been the same. Often, if something doesn't impact us personally, we tend to not realize how it may impact another. By questioning, we encourage people to realize and then contribute themselves to making change. After we accept, understanding our privilege, and start questioning, we can move on to breaking stereotypes that people with disabilities are dumb or incapable. The only reason this stereotype has stuck around is because our society has made it a barrier for those with differences. It's like being a left-handed person in a right-hand person's world, getting pushed aside because tools weren't made for you. Except left-handed people are accepted, but disabilities are not. People with disabilities are smart and talented. For example, all it takes is one glance at my phone password and my little sister has remembered it. She has an incredible memory and pretty much knows all the passwords in the household. I don't even want to get started on what a talented singer she is. I swear, she hits every note perfectly and can memorize the tunes of a song with all its little bits. She has the most pure heart and is the most non-judgmental human being I've ever met in my life. I am constantly learning and growing from her. She helps teach me to be a better person and enjoy the simple things in life. Yes, there are negatives which do make life difficult for her and my family. Like having to take on extra responsibilities, having set routines. Some nights none of us get much sleep. There are breakdowns and crying, but her positives will always outweigh the negatives. And no one is perfect. On the outside, we may look like a fully functioning normal family, but there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. From parents leaving work early because my sister was upset at school. It's the constant state of alert when we are out, never knowing when she might make a run. It's the stares we get when out shopping, glares of passing strangers when my sister is having... It's the stares we get when out shopping, glares of passing strangers thinking that this must be a naughty child when my sister is having a breakdown. With autism, often you can't see the disability physically. If I were to show you a picture of my sister, you can't see that she has autism. Making things difficult for my parents as they find they have to explain themselves, when in reality, they don't owe people an explanation, as it's the passing people's judgment who need to learn to accept and understand their privilege. We have to all remember that people with special needs are still people, and we shouldn't treat them any differently. I was privileged enough to have been mentored by Matt Frost, who is the Principal Advisor Lived Experience for Disability Issues in the Ministry of Education. Matt has autism and is a strong advocate for people with disabilities. When speaking with him, he mentioned a comment that was once made to him. "No, Mr. Frost, we care for disabled people, but people in charge of policy and change are not disabled people." Matt Frost is someone who I look up to and is already breaking barriers and stereotypes. I remember hearing this and feeling so disgusted, thinking, how could anyone say that? People with disabilities have voices. They can create change. We must be better allies and help empower and encourage people with disabilities to have power over themselves rather than us making rules on what they can and can't do. Our use of language is one way the world is set up against disabled people. Terms we need to drop are handicapped and retarded. Here's why you need to drop this term. The word was originally used to describe people that had below average intelligence and learning difficulties with daily skills. It also means to hinder or to make something slow. What is wrong with the R word is that it undervalues people. Such people have a wide range of skills and talents to offer. They are not below average. By using the R word, it's basically saying you are lower than everyone else. This can really devalue people, as the connotations that go behind them are extremely negative and dehumanizing. I especially find it super frustrating when I hear the term retarded used as a joke, slur, and insult. People start to throw the R word around, using it to describe someone as an idiot or stupid. Now look, I'm not here to blame you for using the R word in the past, because we all make mistakes. But now that you are aware, you can use your privilege to create change. After using correct language, next is standing up against discrimination. Many special needs kids are victims of bullying, as students think it's okay to mock or take advantage of students with disabilities. People with disabilities have feelings and are worthy of respect like everyone else. So quit using them as the butt of a joke. With the rise of TikTok, I've seen so many discriminatory TikToks mocking the way people with disabilities act and speak. The worst is seen when I start to scroll through the comments of these videos and find that people think it's okay to do, or they accept that it's wrong, they are laughing, but can't help it. I also remember when I was in year 10, it was 2017, I read this article and stuff titled, "Teenage Girls Torment Down Syndrome Student Post Bullying Photos on Snapchat." I remember being furious and shocked that this happened at a Wellington high school. The teenage girls pretended to be her friend and then urged the 15-year-old Down syndrome student to do things like flash her breast and lick the floor while they recorded. They captioned these videos with words like slag. Although this happened in 2017, it does not mean we forget. Another article I read that broke my heart was when it described an autistic boy was bullied almost daily at his intermediate in Auckland. He was told by other students to go and kill himself. Tell me, why do we accept this? How can we let this happen? These are just 2 examples, but there are so many undocumented evidence of bullying that happened, and it's not okay. It's made quite clear that the bullies haven't understood what acceptance is. Some people suggest genetic engineering and technology as a problem solver. However, this can negatively affect the lives of people living with disabilities. When and where are we going to draw the line? With the ever-evolving advancement of technology, Will we one day live in a world where different disabilities, like for example Down syndrome, could be seen as something that can be erased by technology? Because if we say we value diversity, are we really valuing diversity when we are continuously seeking to find ways to create the perfect human beings? This negatively affects the disabled community because it promotes eliminating diversity instead of focusing on eliminating the barriers that make diversity seem bad. We must seek diversity through focusing on what people with disabilities can do rather than only seeing the negative. Making people with disabilities feel like a burden to society must be eliminated because no one wants to feel like a burden. Instead of looking at the problem, start looking at the solutions of what we can actually do to be better, and realize that we are not doing enough to be inclusive. The biggest thing that we can do is be the next generation that pushes for change. As the next generation, we can do this. We have time to change our mindsets by acceptance, understanding our privileges, questioning systems, breaking stereotypes, using correct language, and standing up against discrimination. We can go out into our community and promote a more fair and inclusive New Zealand. So how can we actually do this? We are going to be the next generation of CEOs, the next generation of builders, the next generation of politicians, the next generation of scientists, doctors, nurses, retail workers, supermarket owners. Every job, you name it, it's going to be us. If we go through these stages, we will have the power to change the systems, policies, and environments. And because of this, we can create platforms that include every member of our society. We can change the education system to one that is equitable. We can change our communities to accept and value every member. We can start listening to the voices we have underestimated, and we can strive for better representation. This is what passing the ball around looks like. It may mean you won't always get the goals and glory, but you win together as a team. I've decided that I'm going to start passing the ball around. I especially want to pass the ball around because I want to see my sister thrive and live in a world where people like her feel encouraged and empowered to be who they are and to feel accepted for their differences. As we move forward as a society, let's quit making inclusivity an option, because it's not optional.
Bum 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 ba. Ta-da!